Hello friends, in this video we are going to talk about using a shipping container as shop space. So in here what you'll see is that we have a 40-foot container high cube, I'll explain that in just a second, and a 40-foot container high cube and a 20-foot container high cube. So these are just kind of like laid out, the two 40-footers are next to each other. And then the 20-footer is just on edge to kind of block off the end of the shop. And this is all just built with basically just junk that we found laying around. We got these three doors out of a construction project. Now, if you're going to put in roll-up doors on a container, I'm going to show you. So with those, see that's a beam that kind of goes across the top because it's a double door. So we wanted to strengthen up the accordion metal there when we cut out the space, because it's a pretty big space. It's a double door, and this actually unsnaps. You see there's if you look up here, see, there you just pull this, and the centerpiece comes out. So you can get big things inside and out of the door, but what that means is that there's no metal support right there. So, and now these right here, I'm just going to point these out. See these? That metal beam up there, those are actually pretty inexpensive, and where they come from is shelving, industrial shelving, and so that's the supports for industrial shelving, and we just welded two of them together up there, and then bolted them in and then welded them. And so basically what that does is it keeps the accordion metal, this accordion metal here, from slowly stretching, because there's really nothing to keep that part of the container from sagging if we loaded it up, which so that's what the beam's doing. So it isn't actually holding weight, it's preventing stretch. You could almost get away with a piece of flat iron strapping. And okay, so then we put in an electrical system. All this stuff is still being worked on. See, you know, we're still stretching wires and everything. But we found an electrical box, and then there's a transformer, because we have 220, because of course we're overseas, and then we have 110 volts going also. Now all this really should be in conduit like that, but you know, it's just a shop out in the bush. It's not really like any professional operation or anything, but it is what a lot of people end up doing when they build a container type shop. Okay, now we're going to talk about the floors specifically in kind of another video, because just know that these floors are pesticide impregnated. So if you're thinking about living inside of a container and you're doing your research, it's a big deal, because you don't want to get sick. Something else I want to point out is this particular container has wood floors that change to metal. See that right there? See that part this part of the floor here is part of the steel. And then see, there's the plywood side, and that's the steel side. And that is done because they have machines that come in from the back of the container, way in there, and shoot a fork underneath the container and lift it when they're empty. So that has to be metal. Well, that can be used to your advantage when you're building. First of all, that metal doesn't have any pesticides in it, and that's that in and of itself is a really nice advantage. And okay, so, and now something else I'm going to show you on the we ship these containers over to our current location, and as we use different stuff, see, as we empty the container, that over there are some windows, and as we go through those windows and use them and send them out, then that just keeps giving us more space to more shop space, which is quite nice. I want to point these out. These are the Z-Moto cameras up here. See that? They connect by Wi-Fi, and they're motion sensitive. So we put those in every container, and we also put them around the shop. See, so when somebody comes wandering around the area, or the animals, or you know, a cow gets loose, whatever, it makes some noise and sets off the proximity alarm, which goes straight to your phone. So that's kind of a nice security benefit right there. Okay, so What else can we show you? See, there's a lot of double layers. See, when you go to order your container, we ordered high cubes, and I don't think you could actually get away with a shop container if you didn't have high cubes, because containers are already very narrow, and it's really hard to work in a narrow space. So the idea that this shop has, see, I'm going to go to the opening now. So it's one container, then a 20-foot section between the two containers, then the other container, and then a big open bay roof up here. This is all still in construction, you can see, but anyway, you know, we just come down here and do a few projects, a little concrete layout, little concrete pad that we can pull equipment up onto to work on, and the rest of it is still just all a rock compressed floor. So, but what happens is that because the container is so narrow, it's almost like we needed a way that you could open up the container and then you have the full width of this extra platform that we built. Or you come on over to this side. This side's the carpentry shop. That's why it has these those things there that are supposed to be carpentry-like. See, that's the kind of cute, huh? So the so anyway, so then this side here has these slab carpentry tables, and then this side over here has a metal table. See, and so that because that's the side that we do our welding on. And what we normally end up doing is we have a welding machine right there. We pull it to the corner right up in here. We plug it in right there, and then we can weld on the metal table right here. And if we're pulling stuff out of vehicles or something like that, see, we can come over. This is a swinging davit right here. I don't know if you can quite see it. So that is that's a little swinging davit. And see, one of the things about containers is that because they're metal, they're really convenient to just come on up and just stick things onto the side of. Like, see, this is the base of the davit right here. See, that's kind of the base of the davit right there. And we just weld that on, and then weld on at the top, and then that's it. We have our, and we just have our davit right there. And it had to be set across from the wall because of the way that that motor sits. But anyway, that's that's kind of a nice thing about containers. They're not all that strong, you know. They look strong, but like, okay, so this here, see, that's just a little angle iron support that we just welded on to the wall. But like, if you get on that and try to push, see, you get bounce in there. See, it's because these things are really, they're just a tin can. They're not all that strong. Now this one here, because we only did a single door, that single door didn't really need that excess support like the double door seemed to kind of want. Although, I didn't actually test it. Like, I didn't wait for the roof to sag or anything. But there's a bunch of stuff piled up there, just junk, But it does add up to some weight. So, and the trim, just putting a piece of 2x4 just stuck up there and screwed on. It cleans up that door quite a bit. Like when I get back over to here, that door kind of being framed out like that, it does clean it up quite a bit. And so I point that out as far as building a shop. Yeah, the narrowness, folks. That's a bit of an issue. Now, the way that a lot of this is designed is that everything's on wheels. This is kind of the idea of the shop. See, so like here's a little bandsaw, and the bandsaw's on wheels. Here's a horizontal mill, and that, see, it's on wheels. And then the welder, see, that's on wheels. The lathe is bolted down, man. You don't want that thing flipping over on top of you. You would not be so happy. And okay, so then this is the box here that has the tools for the lathes and for the milling operations. So I can pull that out. See, it just and that's kind of, see, it just pulls out, and that is a nice thing about these container floors, is that like you can't overload them by rolling things on them. there's a lot of when you start moving this types of equipment around, you have to look at the pounds per square foot that the floor can handle. And so you want to not buckle your floor, because like, okay, if you look right here, see, that's a place where a rib and a stringer come together. See, that's why there's that whole corner piece right there. See, there's a support there and a support there. Now you get to the middle, see, okay, now there's the next rib or the next stringer, whatever. And so right there, that middle of those two, you can only put so much weight there before you buckle the floor. And so, but containers, it's like, the weight amount is so high that it just doesn't really matter. That's part of the 110 volt system that we're still building or still wiring in. And because we have American tools and we have overseas tools simultaneously. So here's another. See, we find these around, these left over from old projects. And I just keep coming in and welding them in. But so that's how come, like, okay, and that one's different. And so I just kind of throw them out here into the shop as we go. So now, like that air compressor, when that air compressor is running, it'll sit here and vibrate and make that wall vibrate. I don't know if it could do that forever before it starts to like crack metal or something. So I point that out. Here's another trick too. See, I'm a pretty good welder. See, so I can just take a strip like this and just weld it to this, because this is only 3 mil. This wall is only 3 mil. But if you're gonna, like, if you only have a stick welder, for example, and you want to weld something like that to the wall, like the way that these pieces are welded, right? Okay, so then what you would use is really small rod, like 2 mil rod, and go downhand. And so you start on the top and you're welding down, just letting the puddle fall. But what's actually even better is if you took a piece of flat iron that's about that wide, and just a little bit inside of that, like what would that be, like inch and a half or something, and you lay the piece of flat iron on here, then you can downhand, and then your chances of burning through the wall of the container are quite slim. Now you can come back and you can weld to this flat iron that you put here, and the flat iron, if the flat iron is 3/16 or something, then it's not going to burn through nearly so easy. Otherwise it's pretty easy to burn through these walls, and that kind of stalls the project. And okay, so now when you get your container, you can get your container in a high cube, which is 9.6 feet, or you can get the 8.6. I think those are the two. Don't quote me on those, but I'm pretty sure that's the two heights of container height. And the 8.6 it's just not enough. So this one here, let's see, this one here is a high cube, and it's still got a sticker left over, kind of super heavy. Look at that, 9.6. Okay, so 9.6 is the high cube. So you're really looking for the high cube if you're going to use it for anything but just general storage. And now the other thing to note here, see that double door right there, that's pretty easy. You just cut that in there with a grinder and a cutoff disc. And I mean, you'll make that door there in probably 10 minutes. Just snap a chalk line, snap after you mark out your corners, and that's it. Like these, you'd think that the container would be rather secure, but they're not that secure. What they're designed to be is very loud if you try to get into them, and but if the container is stored someplace where it doesn't really matter if it's loud for someone to get in there, then people can just come in with a battery grinder and they'll just make a doorway right in the wall, and it'll probably take them about 4 minutes, if that, to be through the side of a container. So don't consider it a steel safe that's bolted down or something, because with the right piece of equipment, which isn't much, I'll tell you how, if these things are not fully loaded, and especially like a 20-footer, what people will do, what they can do if they want to take a container, is they just come into they just back a truck right up to the back of it, and then they just get underneath them with a set of hydraulic jacks, and they just lift up just tilt the container right up till they can back the truck underneath the container, and then they just start jamming the truck with a winch pulling the container forward, and that's what happens. They just drag the container right up onto the back of a truck, and they can drive away. So they're not all that secure. Like this one, you probably couldn't do that because we've built a roof over it now. So, but in just general, like I'm just trying to give you some concepts for dealing with container shipping, container using them as kind of utilitarian. Then this here, we put this on the end. See, we put this container. We put a 40-foot. And then we continued a little lean-to off the side of it, like this. And then it's just another place that's kind of out of the weather to throw a bunch more junk, really. And that's basically, you wonder about that too. There is kind of a question there, like how much junk do you want to store? How much junk do you need to store? Because, like, when I think about this, like a good portion of it costs a lot to put all this together, and then I have it filled up with stuff that isn't really that valuable. So I just kind of want to point that out, that if I had taken this money and, I don't know, put it into Bitcoin or something and let the money sit someplace other than sitting here in this kind of little shelter thing that I made, all those 4x6, 6x2s or 2x6s and all these posts, they all cost when you got to get them, you got to buy them. And then what I end up with, what am I storing in here? Well, I'm storing a bunch of trapping. Okay, well, we make money off our trapping and fur collection. So, yeah, okay. And then, what else do we have in here? We have a bunch of old broken engines that, once in a while I might need a muffler or something. So I come out here and drag one off of one of these old engines. Well, that's okay, but, like, is it really worth it for all the money that we had to spend to build this whole shop? Yeah, it adds to some self-sufficiency. You got to figure that into the equation. But then after that, so we've got a few of these washing machines on the property. So I keep one that's a wreck so I can get parts off of it. We got that dishwasher in a couple places. So, because, we have some Airbnbs and stuff. So I am able to fix things rather quickly. I've got a spare of my other generator. So, but yeah, is it really worth it? So I want to point that out because there's a conceptual side to this, that the more storage that you have, the more we fill it up with useless stuff that doesn't really have any value. So I just want to point that out. Okay, now here's kind of a nice thing, just kind of an interesting thing about containers, because they're metal, we find all of these things, like that's a metal little pull-out drawer thing with, it's like, do I really need all that stuff? Well, we're keeping it because we have room for it. But the idea is that a lot of this stuff, see, we just come over, like these I found at the tip, and I look at that, I go, well, that's pretty cool, that's a big old tilt-out bin right there. And so, and the bottoms were rotted out, see, because we do a lot of shopping at the local dump, so people throw this stuff out. And see, the bottom was all rotted out. So what we did was we just jacked it up to the right height and then just welded it to the wall, see? And because they're containers, well, we can do that. And so then that makes it, it's kind of a trick with containers. It's kind of that's kind of a nice thing. Somebody else pointed out to me, see how that container is kind of right on the ground? And this here, this platform is a rock platform. So in other words, we took crushed rock and compacted it with on the back of a tractor. We had a roller that was on the back of a tractor. So it was a fairly big equipment. But if you're just gonna take a container and set it, like let's say that you set it out there on that plot of grass right there, see, and just put it up on blocks. And which would seem like a really good idea, but one of my friends, he had a brush fire come through, and the fire just went right underneath the container, lit the floor on fire, and his whole shop was gone in about 15 minutes. It went from a brush fire that was coming through the little area, and boom, it got underneath the shop, and he had some lathes and mills and all that kind of stuff, and You know, you need these little lathes like that because I mean, you know, we live out in the bush, so if you're going to be able to fix things, you kind of need to be able to work metal. So you know, one 20-foot container would do a lot. Okay, so now we're back to these. Now we're back to these little roll-ups here. Oh, hey, there's one. See that? There's a hole burned through. See, and now that's the hole burned through when we were welding. I was stick welding on the outside there to put up that beam, and yep, it burned right through. And because 3 mil with no backing, it's not like super easy to weld to. Okay, these doors, these are just regular garage doors, but see, they just bolt to the side of the container like that. I mean, it took from the time that we arrived with these two roll-up doors to the time that, you know, we were opened up the doors and could walk away was probably like, you know, 2 or 3 hours, and we had made the hole and held these things up in place and bolted them, and then that's it. You know, you have you have roll-up doors. Now they're not all that secure. You know, you could probably drive a quad through there if you didn't care about your existence afterwards. But like, you know, you could go through those. They're just a thin metal garage door, but they do qualify for locked up for insurance purposes. So there is that. And you know, somebody does have to be a little bit. You know, they have to be a little bit more like they really want to get in, and that they're making a statement. I'm breaking into your place to go through those doors. So there is. But anyway, that is. There's no use really going like super secure with the container anyway, because you know you can just go through the wall. There just isn't a. You know, it's only 3 mil mild steel. Well, core 10, so it's got a little bit more strength to it, but not a lot. So I'm pointing that out because I get people that, because, you know, we talk about, people always want to talk containers. And so anyway, so that's it for the container shop. One of the things we've tried to do on the shop is double levels, see? So, and these are just doors that are just laid on, these are just old hollow core doors. In fact, you wonder even if it's strong enough to hold itself up. I probably should put another support across the middle there or something. But it's, I can see it's actually bulging right there. It'd be funny if it broke right now. And well, one thing to do is keep putting your heavy stuff on the supports. Like that's all the wire that we're wiring the shop with. And you know, we got all that at an estate sale, and it's all just so you know, we got all these rolls of wires. So you know, I just keep running wires everywhere. And there's part of the 110 volt system that's still being installed. It's we're slowly working our way along. Here's the end of it. So there's one. That's the local power, and then that's the 110 volt. And then we also need the 12 volt, which comes across to run the winches and that type of thing. Okay, here's another one of these. Here's another one of these kind of like long. They have these all over around here. These are slabs of wood that get left over from when people fall trees, and you can just keep cutting these slabs with an Alaskan chainsaw, and so that's kind of a way that people get these big tables. So anyway, so that's one of the that's where that comes from. Oh no, these came from the tip. I'll just point these out. See, these are these you know, these little you know, the pegboard stuff, but these are metal. See, and so I could just come up, and I saw them at the garbage dump, and so they just that's it. We just welded them to the wall, and there's another. Let's see. So how did that one come out? Yeah, a little bit better. Not all that good. I told you I was a good welder too. How funny is that? Anyway, well, I can weld on 3 mil and not burn through, but every now and again. Here's another one of these tables down off the end, and more stuff. You know, that's what happens. The more flat surfaces you have, the more you're collecting stuff. I keep pointing that out, and I keep pointing that out because what happens is it's easy to fill up a lot of space with containers because they're cheap. They're relatively cheap anyway. So okay, now that's another thing. When you go to buy your container, you'll see that they have a. I'm going to come over to. I'm going to come over here, and they have this right here. See, and this is shows you that this container has been inspected. Now the last time was 2017 because that's when we shipped this in. So I got an inspection on the container in 2017, so then it was good for international transport. And see, so the container is made in 2006. Now all the containers have this, and you can't get this thing off. It's glued on there, and the rivets, it's quite well put on there, that little tag. So anyway, but it gives you the build date. It gives you, one of the things that you can get off of this is you can come into these numbers up here, and you might be able to find, and the type over here, and you might be able to find the history of the container, and that makes a big deal if we're talking about the floors. I'm going to do the floors in a separate video, which I'll probably stop and we'll do that right now. And so anyway, you can then get the history of the container. So like this container, when we bought it, I think that one was $1,800. So, I mean, it's a fair amount of building for $1,800. And we were able to just throw all of our stuff in it, everything that we were shipping over. And then when it got here, we had already built this platform, and we could just set it down on the platform and shazam, that was it. We cut a hole in the side, and you know, you got a building that's, you know, kind of out of the rain at that point. And then we built this, built just a little shelter over it. And now that shelter, we should talk about that shelter here really quick. That shelter, if you look up there, see, the shelter doesn't have any center support. See, so what we did was we went out on the outside of the container and we bolted down a 4x2. Then on the end of every one of those joists, we cut a bird mouth and put it onto that 4x2. So that 4x2 is glued and bolted, like a lot of bolts. And then it also has these little struts. See those? Right there, they're going along. So that's one more place that we get a little bit of support, because what I wanted the inside of the shop here to be able, and I wanted it tall too, because I pull trucks in here and we pull tractors in here because we're kind of out in the bush, you know. So I wanted it to be tall. I think we're at 3.6 meters, whatever that is, 12, 13, 14. It's like 15 feet up there or something, 9 feet. It's probably 12, 14 feet, something like that. And so I wanted to be able to pull that equipment in here, and then it just goes up on that ridge. And the ridge didn't have to be very strong because all those joists are under compression. So as long as the container doesn't move, which it's probably not going to, and then we also have every other joist has that little piece going across there. See, and that's bolted in also. So there's a fair amount of structure, but not all that much, you know. I mean, it's not like it's like you couldn't lift off of this roof, like you couldn't. Although we have actually, in fact, there's some lifting points right there that we were hauling some stuff up, and I was probably putting like, you know, probably 400 pounds on that, which I had the gate off of a big truck that we had to lift off, and then I had one there. See, oh, look at that! I actually have a chain hoist up there. Like really, you wouldn't want to lift off of the roof, but there it is. There's a chain hoist for because yeah. So yeah, see, and that's one of the things that happens. See, you build and you say, okay, now don't lift off of this, and then the next thing you know, now we got chain hoists and stuff that are off there. We ended up getting all these fluorescent lights for free, so I put them up, and then after I put them up and then, you know, there's a bunch of them, and they're high output, and as I put them up, then I went to buy the bulbs, and I see why they were free, because those bulbs, which are, there's some of the bulbs right there. See, those bulbs, they're 25 bucks a piece, see? Well, 25 bucks, you can go on over and grab these LEDs like that one right there, or that one right there. You can get those for like, you know, $15, and it's the whole thing. It's all ISP 67 waterproofed, and power cord already on the outside. So, oh yeah, there's another block. There's more. More lifting. After I'm telling you not to lift on them. Anyway, well, it hasn't fallen down yet. But anyway, it's just a place to do some outside work and not like it's not a commercial operation or anything. I'm just keeping my own gear running, and it was probably the cheapest way to go. So this container here, that's a better container because it has the lock box, and it was some years earlier. Okay, so that first one was a 2006. Now let's see what this one has. Let's see, 2015. See, we'll get those things out of there. Yeah, see, so that one's a 2015, and so this one was like $2,400. Now there's a thing to that too. You know, oftentimes you'll see people will say, "Yeah, I got a container. You can have it here for free. It's got some rust." Well, rusty containers are hard to fix. Like, you got a lot of surface area in metal, and as soon as it starts to pit, you've got twice as much surface area. It's a big deal that I'm going to mention here. See, you take the surface area of like you know, let's say you take a square meter, a square yard of surface area, and you go to paint it. Well, you know, you clean it up and you paint it so it was a square yard. If it's pitted, and you know, now it's going to take you half a day because you got to get in there with wire brushes or sandblasting or something. You know, you need some way that you're going to prep out that metal and get as much of the rust off as you can, because one of the things about rust is you start chipping rust and you'll see it goes brown, 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 black. When you get to the black, you're on the final layer. That's the acid layer, see? And rust takes acid to continue to rust, but it makes acid. So when steel is rusting, it's making acid, and that's the black layer at the bottom of the rust. See, and that's why concrete and steel go together so well. Ferrocement, right? Like ferrocement bridges and with rebar reinforced concrete. The reason that works so well is because the rust doesn't really happen to the steel because the concrete is a base, and that prevents the rust from happening. So anyway, so I point that out. That's one thing that you can do. You can chip down a rusty container and you can make a slurry of Portland cement. That's just the cement of that's just the cement of concrete. So you mix that up and almost make like a paint out of it. You ever like pour in concrete and you forget to wash your tools, and then you come back later and you go, "Oh my goodness, look at this. These things are all covered with," I got one right over here. I can show you what this is. Okay, so the way that concrete sticks is so good that you'll go, "Oh,